Mrs. Lorraine Carter stood silently by the tall bay window of her grand estate, gazing out at the perfectly trimmed hedges and blooming magnolias. But even in all that beauty, her heart felt heavy. Her only son, Elijah, had changed completely. Since the accident, he used to be vibrant, the kind of young black man who filled every room with laughter and life. At just 25, he had dreams bigger than the city skyline, but after the car crash, everything collapsed. He had lost the use of his legs, now confined to a sleek, custom wheelchair. But it wasn't the chair that broke him. It was the pity in people's eyes, the stares, and worst of all, the girl he had loved with everything in him walked away the moment he became disabled. One quiet evening, Mrs. Carter knocked gently and entered her son's room. Elijah sat by the window, the blinds barely open, his eyes shadowed with pain. "Elijah," she said softly, trying to smile. "Can we talk for a moment? If it's about another therapist or some prayer circle, please." "Not today," he muttered without turning. "No, baby, it's something else," she said, sitting beside him and resting her hand gently on his shoulder. "I've made a decision. I want to invite 4 women to stay with us here at the Carter estate. For 2 weeks. I want you to talk to them. Spend time with them. Maybe one of them might actually love you for who you are." Elijah turned sharply, his expression hard. Then he laughed, but it was bitter and empty. "So now I'm a prize, a trophy to be fought over? You really think testing women like their shoes in a shop is going to fix me?" "No, that's not." "Let's be real, Ma," he snapped. "No woman wants a man like this. They want money, fame, trips to Jamaica, not a brother who rolls around in a wheelchair." Mrs. Carter's eyes welled up. She squeezed his hand gently. "Just give it a chance for me." "No," Elijah's voice thundered. "Don't bring anyone here. I don't want pity and I don't want fake love." But Lorraine Carter had already made up her mind. 2 weeks later, 4 beautiful women arrived at the estate. Each one dressed to impress, smiles on their faces. But their intentions were different. Brielle, light-skinned and stylish, came from money, but wanted more. She wasn't looking for love, just a richer lifestyle and a man to match her ambition. Tasha, confident and sharply dressed, dreamed of becoming a media queen. She believed marrying a wealthy man would open every door she'd been knocking on. Zaria, innocent-looking but fierce beneath the surface, was all about fashion and finesse. Men were stepping stones in her world, not partners. And then there was Ayana, quiet, dark-skinned, with warm, soulful eyes. She had grown up in the struggle, her father gone too soon, and her mother selling yams and okra to make ends meet. She didn't come from wealth, but she carried dignity like royalty. As the house staff greeted them, Mrs. Carter appeared, regal in her Ankara print head wrap and flowing dress. "Welcome, ladies," she said with grace. "You'll stay here for 2 weeks. My son Elijah is around. Get to know him. But remember, this house sees more than you think. It listens too." The women nodded, half confused by her words, half enchanted by the luxury around them. That night, Elijah rolled into the living room where the women sat, dressed casually, but with tension bubbling under the surface. His eyes were sharp, his jaw set. He didn't greet them. He just stared. Brielle whispered, "He's cute, but what's his problem?" Elijah's voice cut through the room. "My problem is that I didn't ask to be part of this little game." Zaria blinked. "What game? You think I don't see what this is?" he snapped. "Y'all see the house, the luxury, and think you can act your way into a billionaire's arms. Let me be clear. Nothing you do will work. I'll make sure you all leave before the 2 weeks are over." Tasha tried to laugh it off. "We just want to get to know you." "Save it," Elijah said sharply. "You want the bank account, not the man." Only Ayana remained quiet, her gaze soft but firm. She didn't flinch, didn't try to smile. She simply got up and walked away. And in that brief moment, something in Elijah noticed her. Not for what she wore or how she moved, but for the fact that she didn't pretend, That was the beginning. The next few days at the Carter estate felt like an uneasy masquerade. Elijah kept to himself, cold and distant, while the women played roles they thought might win his favor. But beneath their foundation and weaves, the truth was itching to surface. Every meal became a test of patience. Elijah refused to speak during breakfast. At lunch, he rolled past the table, knocking over a vase deliberately. At dinner, he barely ate, snapping at anyone who dared try small talk. One morning, Zaria walked into the hallway, smiled, and said, "Good morning, Elijah." He didn't even slow his wheelchair, but Brielle had had enough. She stomped into Mrs. Carter's sitting room and threw her hands in the air. "Ma'am, your son is acting like we don't matter. We came all the way here and he's treating us like trash." Mrs. Carter stayed calm, her voice cool and collected. "You're free to leave any time, Miss Brielle." But none of them left. Not yet, because deep down the money still called. Except for Ayana. She didn't follow Elijah around or try to win points. She was usually in the kitchen with Aunt Denise, the family cook, peeling yams or stirring okra soup. Or she'd be outside with Mr. Jerome, the gardener, learning the names of every herb and bloom. One morning, as Elijah rolled down the path near the flower beds, Ayana gently greeted, "Good morning." He paused for a second. She didn't grin. She didn't flutter her lashes. Her tone was soft, genuine. That night, Elijah said to his mother, "They'll all leave soon. You'll see." Mrs. Carter gave a knowing smile. "We'll see, son." The next morning, the women lounged by the pool, sunglasses on, sipping mango smoothies like they were vacationing in Ghana. From his bedroom balcony, Elijah watched them, disgust simmering in his gut. "They came for the wealth," he muttered. "Let's see how far they'll go." Down by the pool, the masks were slipping. Brielle sat cross-legged, adjusting her designer shades. "Did y'all see how he looked at us yesterday? Like we were interrupting his peace." Zaria laughed. "Girl, forget him. He's a prince in a wheelchair. And I'm not here for the throne. I'm here for the bag." "Same," Tasha said, sipping her smoothie. "Once I get that ring, I'll be traveling solo. He can stay in his wing and sulk. I need red carpets, not wheelchair ramps." They laughed, the sound cold and hollow, like coins hitting marble floors. Only Ayana sat apart, her feet dipped in the water, a book in her lap. She heard every word, but she said nothing. In her heart, she finally understood why Elijah was so angry. Fake people were everywhere. That afternoon, Elijah set his plan in motion. He called the housekeeper and gave her a simple message. "Tell the girls I'll give them a tour of the estate." They gathered in the living room curious, trying their best to look sweet. Elijah met them in a crisp white shirt and slacks, expression unreadable. Zaria leaned in, flashing a smile. "Elijah, you're glowing today." He ignored her. "Let's go." He led them through the lush garden, the guest house, the mini theater, and the Carter family museum. Their eyes lit up at every luxury. Brielle whispered to Tasha, "This house is a jackpot, we can't mess this up." But then Elijah led them to a less glamorous area, a muddy, overgrown patch behind the estate. "Where are we going?" Zaria wrinkled her nose. "You'll see," Elijah replied. They reached a small farming area, wet soil, sun overhead, the scent of earth rich and thick. Elijah turned his chair toward them. "From today, any woman who wants to stay here must work this land for at least 1 hour every morning. No makeup, no phone, no help. Just your hands. And the dirt." Brielle gasped. "Are you serious?" Zaria folded her arms. "You think we came here to be gardeners?" Tasha sneered. "You think because you're in that chair you can treat us like maids?" Ayana stepped forward without a word. She removed her sandals, rolled up her pants, and stepped into the mud. Elijah stared. "Why aren't you complaining?" Ayana looked at him with calm eyes. "Because I've worked harder than this. I've seen tougher days. This is nothing." The others scoffed and stormed back inside, angry and insulted. That evening they gathered in one of the guest rooms, their irritation boiling. "He's crazy," Brielle shouted. "Telling me to dig in the dirt like I don't have these nails." Zarya laughed. "Let's fake it for 2 weeks. Smile, act sweet. Once one of us locks him down, we're out." Tasha nodded. "We play the game. Easy." But Ayana wasn't with them. She was in the kitchen, humming quietly while helping Aunt Denise chop onions. Mrs. Carter passed by and paused, watching her. "You don't have to do this, sweetheart." Ayana looked up with a small smile. "No, ma'am, but I like being useful. It keeps my mind clear." Mrs. Carter nodded slowly. "You have a beautiful heart, Ayana." Ayana blushed. "Thank you." Later that night, Elijah saw her bringing food up to his room. "I didn't ask for this," he said coldly. "I know," she replied. "But you still need to eat. Why are you pretending to care?" "I'm not pretending," Ayana said, quietly. "I know how it feels to be ignored." She left before he could respond, and for the first time in weeks, Elijah didn't feel invisible. He felt seen. The next morning, the housekeeper entered the dining room, holding a large basket, filled with gloves, rubber boots, and garden tools. "What's all this?" Tasha asked, frowning. "Mr. Elijah's instructions," the housekeeper replied. "You have farming duty today. 1 hour. No exceptions." The groans began immediately. "You've got to be kidding," Zarya said. "I didn't sign up for this," Brielle muttered. Tasha scoffed. "I spent money on this skincare. You think I'm about to mess it up digging yams?" But Ayana said nothing. She quietly took her gloves and boots and headed outside. An hour later, all 4 women were standing under the blazing sun. The soil was damp and warm, the air thick with the smell of sweat and soil. Zarya squealed as she spotted a worm. "Ew, no way!" Brielle cursed when her freshly done nail broke. Tasha whined nonstop. "This heat is not for me. I'm a city girl. My skin's allergic to this nonsense." But Ayana? She knelt beside an old farmhand, asking questions, watching carefully, learning how to properly plant seedlings. Her braids were tied up, her hands muddy, her brow glistening with sweat, but her spirit calm. From a distance, Elijah watched through his sunglasses, unseen behind the vines near the fence. His eyes followed Ayana's every move, her patience, her gentleness, her silence. And he saw something else too, the jealousy burning in the other girl's eyes. Later that afternoon, Ayana sat in the lounge with a book. The house was quiet, for now. She felt a rare moment of peace, until the door swung open. Brielle stormed in, heels clacking on the tile. She stood in front of Ayana with a sneer. "You think you're slick?" Ayana looked up. "Excuse me? You think we don't see your game?" Helping in the kitchen, smiling at the staff, playing humble. "You're just trying to look better than us." "I'm not playing anything," Ayana said calmly. "I'm just being myself." "Please," Zarya said, entering behind Brielle. "You think being a housemaid is going to win you the man and the money? Wake up." Tasha walked in last, arms crossed. "We're warning you. Back off." Ayana stood slowly, her voice soft but strong. "I'm not in competition with any of you. I'm not pretending, I'm not trying to win anything." Zarya laughed. "Poor girl, this is not your level. Go back to your little shack and sick family." They all laughed as they walked away, but Ayana sat down again, her hands trembling slightly. She missed her mother. She missed the tiny 1-bedroom apartment where love made up for everything they lacked. She thought about leaving, packing up and going back to her life no matter how hard it was. But something inside her said, "Stay. This isn't finished yet." The next morning, the 4 women were summoned to the Carter estate's grand sitting room. Mrs. Carter sat like a queen on her high-backed gold-accented chair, wearing a bold kente dress, hands folded, her expression unreadable. "Good morning, ladies," she said, her voice cool and steady. "Good morning, ma'am," they all chorused, though tension filled the air. She looked at them one by one, pausing for effect. When I invited you here, I said my goal was to find someone who truly loves my son. The women nodded politely. At first, I planned to reward that woman with 10 million naira. Eyes lit up instantly. But I've changed my mind, she continued. The prize is now 50 million naira, and a business of her own. Zaria's mouth dropped open. Tasha whispered, 50 what? Mrs. Carter leaned in slightly. But understand this clearly. This is not a game. My son is not a prize. He's a human being. If you want that reward, earn his trust, his heart. Don't fake it. Brielle's eyes glowed with ambition. Thank you, ma'am. We won't let you down. Zaria put on her sweetest smile. We'll try our best. Tasha nodded with false humility. We understand now. But Ayana stayed quiet. She didn't even look up. Her heart wasn't on the money. Something about this whole competition didn't sit right with her. Later that night, the house's energy shifted again, but this time, the game turned dark. Zaria was the first to act. She sneaked into Elijah's study wearing a tight nightdress and too much perfume. Hey, Elijah, she said softly, sitting on his desk. Thought I'd come keep you company. You're always so alone. Elijah looked up from his book. What are you doing here? She leaned closer, placing her hand on his face. We're both grown. We could enjoy each other's company. He gently pushed her hand away. Are you really this desperate? Zaria's smile dropped. You'll regret this, she said, storming out. The next day, Brielle tried. She waited in his room, draped in silk, fake tears in her eyes. I just want to comfort you. Get out, Elijah said coldly. Why? Don't you want someone beautiful to care for you? What's wrong with you? He replied. You'd sell your body for a chance at a bank balance? She left angry and humiliated. Then came Tasha. She cooked his favorite meal, brought it to him wearing a tight-fitting dress. I made this with love, she whispered, placing the tray on his table and brushing his arm. Elijah grabbed her wrist, firm but not harsh. Don't. Why not? Because I see through you, all of you. Back in their room that night, the three girls laughed bitterly. That cripple's got a big mouth, Zaria said. Thinks he's a king in that chair, Brielle added. Please, it's the money we're here for. Tasha chuckled. And this little Ayana? Let's see how long her little kind act lasts. What none of them knew was that Mrs. Carter had planted a small voice recorder underneath the vase in their room. She heard it all. The next day, the morning sun poured over the Carter estate, but its warmth couldn't chase away the storm brewing inside. Mrs. Carter stood in her private study, earbuds in, hands trembling as she listened again to the recording taken from the girls' room the night before. It's the money we're here for. Once I get that ring, I'm out. Ayana, let's see how long that act lasts. Disgust twisted her face. These women weren't just gold diggers. They were wolves in lipstick, circling her broken son for blood money. Downstairs, Ayana sat on a bench in the courtyard watching the wind stir the trees. In her hand was a drawing, a picture her younger brother had mailed her last week, a stick figure family. Ayana plus mama plus me. Tears prickled behind her eyes. She missed home. She missed the small, cramped space filled with laughter, the smell of roasted plantains her mom always sold on the street corner. That's when Tasha walked up and sat beside her. Hey, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Can we talk? Ayana nodded slowly. Sure. Tasha crossed her legs, voice casual. You don't say much, you know. Just wondering. Why did you really come here? Ayana hesitated. She'd been careful not to share her story, but something in her heart said to speak her truth. Came for the money, she said quietly. My younger brother is sick, real sick. He needs heart surgery abroad. My mom sold almost everything. I came here because I had no other option. Tasha blinked but said nothing. Ayana continued. But, after staying here watching Elijah, seeing his strength, his anger, his heart, something changed. I don't love him, not yet, but I care about him, not for the money. Tasha burst out laughing. Girl, please. You really from the village, aren't you? Ayana frowned. What do you mean? Tasha leaned in, her tone turning sharp. Let me be clear, I didn't come here for love. I came for the lifestyle, the bags, the nails, the trips. Elijah? He's just a tool. A man who can't even stand properly? What kind of life is that? I have a real boyfriend. Fine as hell. Once I get this 50 million, we out. Ayana's face twisted in shock. You have a boyfriend? Of course, Tasha scoffed. Waiting for me to secure the bag. Ayana shook her head. That's wicked. You think love feeds you? Tasha laughed coldly. Wake up, poverty is the real disease. Ayana stood up, fists clenched. One day you'll regret this. But Tasha just smiled. And one day you'll still be poor. That night, Ayana sat alone in her room, tears rolling silently. She thought about leaving again, packing up, and forgetting all of this. But her heart whispered, stay, not for the money, for the truth. Later, there was a knock on her door. Come in, she said, wiping her face. Tasha entered holding balloons, a cupcake, and 2 glasses. Surprise, it's my birthday. Ayana blinked. Oh, happy birthday, I didn't know. I kept it low-key. Just wanted to celebrate with someone real. You're the only one I like here. Ayana smiled politely. Tasha brought out a small bottle of wine. Let's toast, to dreams, to friendship. Ayana hesitated. I've never had alcohol. Tasha grinned. Come on, you're not in the village anymore. Just a sip. Ayana took the glass with shaking hands. 1 sip turned into 2. Minutes passed soon. Ayana's cheeks were flushed, her voice a little louder. Tasha leaned in and casually placed her phone on the chair, face down, secretly recording. Tell me the truth, she said sweetly. Why did you come here? Ayana blinked, the wine blurring her thoughts. For the money, she slurred. My brother's sick. He needs surgery. Abroad. Tasha leaned in closer. So, do you love Elijah? Ayana giggled. No, but I like him. Didn't come for love. Came for money. Tasha smiled. That was all she needed. She ended the recording silently and stood up, pretending to yawn. Let's get some rest. Ayana collapsed into the bed, fast asleep. Tasha stared at her, a wicked grin growing across her face. Fool, she whispered. Let's see how your mouth saves you tomorrow. The morning sun rose gently over the Carter estate, but inside, a storm was gathering. Tasha was up early, dressed sharply, hair laid to perfection, perfume sweet and strong. She held her phone tightly in one hand and walked into the grand lounge like a queen approaching her throne. Mrs. Carter sat reading a book, her gold-rimmed, glasses resting low on her nose. She glanced up. Good morning, ma'am, Tasha said with a respectful nod. Good morning, Tasha, Mrs. Carter replied calmly. I have something very important to show you, Tasha said, holding out her phone. It's about Ayana. Mrs. Carter slowly took the phone. She pressed play. Ayana's voice filled the room, slurred and soft. I came for the money. My brother is sick. I don't love Elijah. I love money. Silence. Mrs. Carter looked up, her expression unreadable. Even Ayana? Tasha nodded, eagerly. Yes, ma'am. I know you trusted her. We all did. But she's just like the rest of us. Mrs. Carter exhaled slowly, closing her eyes. Thank you, Tasha. I'll think about this. Tasha smiled sweetly. Of course, ma'am. Then she turned and walked out of the room, proud, her heels clicking like victory drums on marble. Back, in her guest room, Ayana stirred awake. Her head pounded. Her mouth was dry. She sat up, confused, trying to piece the night together. Wine, laughter. Then her stomach dropped. What did I say? In her gut, she knew something was wrong. Across the house, Mrs. Carter replayed the audio a third time. Her hands trembled and her heart refused to believe it. Just then, Elijah entered the room. You called me, Mama? He asked, concern in his voice. She nodded and handed him the phone. Listen. He pressed play. As the words spilled out, Ayana's voice saying she loved money, not him. Elijah's expression twisted into disbelief. When it ended, he looked up slowly. Where did this come from? Tasha recorded her, Mrs. Carter said. Elijah shook his head. No, Ayana would never say that. She did. With her own mouth, his mother replied firmly. You trust recordings over people now? Elijah, said voice rising. That's your problem. You never believe in anyone. Mrs. Carter snapped, and you believe in everyone too easily. That's why you always get hurt. Elijah stood tall in his chair, fists clenched. This entire mess started because you didn't trust me to find love on my own. You brought strangers into our home like love was some competition. You made me feel like a burden. Mrs. Carter's eyes welled with tears. I was trying to help you. You were trying to control me, Elijah said quietly. And now, look where we are. A long silence stretched between them, two broken hearts divided by fear. Finally, Elijah turned and whispered, I need to hear it from her. In the garden, Ayana sat under a guava tree, holding her brother's drawing. Again, her eyes were red, her heart heavy. She heard the familiar sound of wheels against stone. Elijah, she breathed, standing up. He rolled toward her, expression blank. I need to ask you something, he said, his voice hollow. Did you say last night that you don't love me? That you only came here for the money? Ayana froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Then it clicked. Tasha. She gave me wine. I told her I didn't drink, but she pushed. I had a little, just a little. Ayana, Elijah cut her off, eyes hard. Is it true? Her voice cracked. Yes, I came for the money at first. For my brother. He's dying. We don't have anything. I was desperate. But once I got to know you, I started to see the man behind the pain. You said you don't love me, he said flatly. I said I didn't. Then. But now. Her eyes flooded with tears. Now, I don't know what it is, but it's real. I swear, Elijah. I heard the recording, he replied coldly. She tricked me, Ayana pleaded. She planned it. I'm disappointed, Elijah said, and turned his wheelchair around without another word. Elijah, please, she begged, but he didn't stop. He rolled away, leaving her alone beneath the tree, heart shattered, breath shaking. Ayana stood frozen for a moment. Then her sadness turned to fire. She stormed into the house, marched straight to Tasha's room, and kicked the door open without knocking. You evil snake, she shouted. Tasha looked up from her makeup mirror and smirked. Oh, so now you found your voice? You planned everything, Ayana snapped. You drugged me with wine, recorded me, and twisted my words. Tasha stood up, arms folded. You were trying to steal my chance, my man, my money. Elijah was never your man, Ayana spat. And love isn't something you win through lies. I don't want love, Tasha yelled. I want a billionaire's life, bags, cars, jet trips, soft living. You think that's going to come from love? You're disgusting, Ayana said. And you will never win. Tasha laughed cruelly. Go cry to your broke brother. This house isn't for girls like you. But Ayana stood her ground. Her voice didn't shake. One day, everything you've done will come back to you. Then she turned and walked out, her spine straight, her heart bruised, but her spirit unbroken. The following morning, an eerie quiet lingered in the Carter estate. Ayana helped Aunt Denise in the kitchen, peeling plantains and stirring stew. She was trying to stay focused, but her mind kept drifting. Does Elijah hate me now? Did I lose everything because of one moment of weakness? Suddenly, one of the maids ran in, breathless. Miss Ayana, come quickly. Mr. Elijah. He's crying in the living room. Ayana dropped the wooden spoon and ran barefoot through the hallways. Tasha, who was upstairs FaceTiming her boyfriend, quickly hung up and followed. Crying, she muttered. What now? They both entered the living room and found Elijah. In his wheelchair, his face buried in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Ayana rushed forward. "Elijah, what's wrong?" Tasha stood behind, arms folded, trying to look concerned. "What's going on?" Elijah lifted his head slowly. His eyes were swollen. "It's over." Ayana blinked. "What do you mean?" He looked at both of them. The business, the money, the estate, all of it. Gone. Tasha gasped. "Gone?" He nodded weakly. "Months ago, I used the estate as collateral to get funding for a new startup. I trusted the wrong people. They scammed me. The bank is repossessing the house next week, cars too. There's nothing left." Ayana sat down slowly, her chest tight. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "I didn't want Mama to worry," he said. "But now it's too late." Tasha's expression changed, her eyes no longer concerned but calculating. Later that night, behind a locked bedroom door, she called her boyfriend. "Babe," she whispered quickly. "There's a problem." "What now?" His voice came through the speaker. "Elijah's broke," she said sharply. "Lost everything. The house, the cars, and all gone." There was a pause. "You serious?" he said. "All that time we invested for nothing?" Tasha bit her lip. "There must still be something left. Wait. Mrs. Carter has a jewelry box, heavy with gold, necklaces, bangles, rings. I've seen it." "Perfect," he replied. "You know what to do. I steal the jewelry, we sell it, we disappear before the bank comes." "Exactly," he said. "It's still your win. Don't walk away empty-handed." Tasha smirked. "I'll do it tonight." She ended the call, already planning every move. "No money, no estate? Fine, but I'll still leave rich." That night, while the house rested under a blanket of silence, Tasha dressed in all black. A silk scarf wrapped her head. She zipped up a large designer travel bag, its weight heavy with gold. She had already sneaked into Mrs. Carter's room, found the hidden box and emptied it into the bag, jewelry worth millions. Now she tiptoed through the hallway, heart pounding, bag dragging slightly behind her. At the back gate, one of the guards stepped forward, flashing a light on her. "Madam, where are you going this late?" She smiled nervously. "My aunt is sick. I need to go, just for the night." He eyed the heavy bag. "Open it." "There's nothing in it. Just clothes." He stepped closer. "Open it." She hesitated. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a thick brown envelope. "There's money inside. Just let me go, please." The guard frowned. "We don't take bribes here, ma'am." I said, "Open the bag." Before she could respond, a voice rang out behind her. "Tasha, open the bag." She froze. Mrs. Carter stepped out of the shadows, her silk robe flowing in the wind. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of fire. "Ma, please. It's not what it looks like." "Then open the bag." Tasha slowly unzipped it. Everyone gasped. Inside were Mrs. Carter's treasured gold pieces, heirlooms passed down through generations. Mrs. Carter stepped closer, her voice shaking. "You were going to steal from me." Tasha dropped to her knees. "It's not mine, it's Ayana. She planted it, I swear." Mrs. Carter folded her arms. "So Ayana broke into my room, took my jewelry, and put it in your bag." "While you were asleep?" "Yes," Tasha sobbed. "She's jealous. She wants to destroy me." "Enough," Mrs. Carter said coldly. Tasha's mask cracked. "Fine," she screamed. "Yes, I took it. So what? I wasted weeks of my life in this house, pretending, acting like I cared for your son who's broke and useless." Elijah rolled into view, face emotionless. Tasha pointed at him. "You think I came here for love? Please. A man who can't even walk? What life can he give me?" Mrs. Carter stepped forward. "You're not just a liar. You're a thief," Tasha hissed. "I did what I had to do. My boyfriend and I were going to use the money to start fresh. I was smart." Elijah spoke up then. Calm, steady. "I was never broke." Tasha blinked. "What?" "The business loss. The bank loan. It was all a lie. Mrs. Carter smiled faintly. My son still owns this house, and his company's. But the wheelchair, Tasha whispered. I've been recovering for months, Elijah said. I started walking again 2 weeks ago. I stayed in the chair to test your heart. Tasha dropped the bag. Her knees buckled. No. You played yourself, Mrs. Carter said coldly. You schemed, lied, stole, and for what? Now, you have nothing. Tasha began crying loud and broken. Please don't send me away. I'm sorry. I'll change. You're sorry because you got caught, Mrs. Carter replied. You are a shame to every woman with dignity. She turned to the guards. Take her out. They removed the gold, handed it back to Mrs. Carter, and pushed Tasha toward the gate. Her suitcase had now filled only with her clothes, dragged behind her. She had arrived hoping to marry a billionaire. She left as a disgrace. The next morning, the Carter estate was bathed in peace. For the first time in weeks, the walls weren't holding secrets and the air felt lighter. Ayana sat alone in the garden, her favorite spot beneath the large jacaranda tree. The petals fell softly like purple snow. She didn't cry. She had cried. Enough. Her heart still ached, but her spirit remained strong. She had been humiliated, accused, nearly thrown out, but she stayed true to herself. Footsteps approached. She turned and saw Mrs. Carter walking slowly toward her. Behind her, Elijah followed, on his feet. Ayana's eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat. Elijah was walking. She stood up quickly, her mouth open in disbelief. Mrs. Carter stopped in front of her, eyes glossy with emotion. Ayana, she said softly. My daughter, I owe you an apology. Ayana blinked. Ma'am? I judged you, Mrs. Carter said, her voice thick. I doubted you. I let a snake into my house and almost drove out the only woman with a pure heart. I let pain blind me. I'm sorry, Ayana's eyes filled. It's okay. No, Elijah said, stepping forward, standing tall, no wheelchair in sight. It's not okay. I should have trusted you. You were honest with me. Real. I let fear make me question the one person who never lied. Ayana covered her mouth. Her tears came then, but not from pain, from release, from love. I forgave you already, she said, her voice trembling. Then all three embraced, right there under the jacaranda, hearts mending, trust restored, healing beginning. That afternoon, Elijah made a quiet visit to a small public hospital on the other side of the city. There, lying in a modest ward, was Ayana's little brother, frail, quiet, drawing on paper with crayons. Their mother, still in her apron from selling fruits, was sitting by the window, fanning herself. Elijah sat with the doctor, spoke privately, and within hours, everything changed. Every bill was paid. A flight was booked. A surgery date was confirmed at a world-renowned hospital abroad. All costs covered. When Ayana found out, she broke down. You didn't have to do all this. I did, Elijah said, holding her hand. Because I love you, and I know you love him. Helping him is part of loving you. That evening, Elijah returned to the same garden where he first saw her differently. When she greeted him quietly, without fear or performance. There, beneath the falling purple petals, he knelt on one knee and pulled out a simple, beautiful, gold ring. Ayana, he said, voice full of warmth. You never chased my money. You never tried to impress me. You were just you, and that's all I ever wanted. Will you marry me? Ayana's hands trembled as she nodded, smiling through tears. Yes, she whispered. 3 months later, wedding bells echoed through the Carter estate, now glowing with joy instead of tension. The transformation was undeniable. From a battlefield of deceit to a sanctuary of true love. Ayana stood in front of a large mirror, radiant in a white gown that shimmered under the golden light. Her locks were adorned with delicate beads and floral accents, her smile soft but sure. Aunt Denise wiped away a tear as she adjusted Ayana's veil. "You look like a queen," she whispered. Downstairs, the estate was filled with friends, family, and familiar faces. Laughter and music floated through the air. Bright kente cloths, Ankara prints, and floral arrangements painted every corner with black beauty and pride. Elijah stood at the altar, tall, proud, no wheelchair in sight. He wore a custom black and gold Agbada suit, his eyes shining as he watched the love of his life walk toward him. Mrs. Carter cried openly, her joy unfiltered. This was what she had dreamed of. Not just a wedding, but a healing, a restoration. When Ayana reached him, Elijah whispered, "You look like everything I prayed for. And you," she said, "are more than I ever imagined." The priest smiled warmly. "Do you, Elijah Carter, take Ayana to be your wife?" "I do." "Ayana, do you?" "I absolutely do." Laughter rippled through the crowd. And when the priest said, "You may now kiss the bride," Elijah lifted Ayana's veil and kissed her gently. The room erupted in cheers. Meanwhile, far away, Tasha stood on a dusty sidewalk in front of a small apartment, banging on the door of the man. She called baby. The door cracked open. Her boyfriend leaned out, looked her up and down, and no jewelry, no bag, no wealth, and scoffed. "No money, no love," he said coldly, and slammed the door in her face. Tasha stood frozen, holding her torn suitcase, her lips trembling. She had played every game, cheated every rule, and still lost everything. Back at the Carter estate, a new chapter was already being written. 9 months later, Ayana gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. They named her Joy. Elijah held her in his arms with pride, and Mrs. Carter sat beside him, whispering blessings over the child. Their home, once a house of bitterness and brokenness, now overflowed with laughter, love, and legacy. As Ayana cradled her daughter, she looked at Elijah and smiled. "We were tested," she said, "but love passed." Elijah kissed her forehead, with flying colors. And so, they lived not just happily ever after, but purposefully ever after, reminding everyone that love isn't about perfection, wealth, or appearances. It's about truth, heart, and choosing someone, again and again, even when it's hard. Night had fallen once again over the Carter estate, but inside, no one was sleeping. Tasha stood in the center of the grand foyer, her hands trembling, sweat glistening. On her brow, the heavy suitcase filled with Mrs. Carter's stolen gold jewelry sat open beside her, exposed under the blinding glow of the chandeliers. A circle of shocked faces surrounded her. The guards, the housekeeper, Aunt Denise, and finally, Mrs. Carter herself standing tall in her maroon silk robe. "You are leaving with my family's gold," Mrs. Carter said, her voice low but furious. Tasha dropped to her knees, her face twisted in panic. "Please, ma'am, I know how it looks, but it's not my fault. It's Ayana. She put the gold in my bag. She set me up because she's jealous I won." Mrs. Carter raised a brow, folding her arms. "So Ayana entered my bedroom, opened my locked drawer, took my jewelry box, placed it in your suitcase, zipped it up, and you didn't notice?" "Yes, yes, ma'am," Tasha cried. "I swear." Before she could spin another lie, Elijah rolled into the room. Not in a wheelchair, but walking slowly and steadily, cane in hand. His eyes were like fire. "Tasha," he said, voice calm but commanding, "you want to tell everyone the truth." Or should I?" Tasha stared at him, speechless. Mrs. Carter turned to her son. "You knew?" Elijah nodded. "Yes, because she told on herself." He raised a phone and pressed play. The room fell silent as a familiar voice filled the air. Tasha's voice, in a secret recording taken just a few nights earlier. "Babe, everything is working. Just 5 more days, that foolish boy will fall. Once I collect the money, we move. The gold is in a box in her bedroom. I'll get it. We'll sell it. We'll still win." Tasha's eyes widened. "You recorded me?" Elijah lowered the phone. "No, You recorded yourself. Ayana's the one who told me something was off. So we checked the house surveillance. Then we listened in on your phone call with your so-called boyfriend, Tasha. Stood frozen, all lies now useless. Mrs. Carter stepped forward, heartbroken. You didn't just betray my son. You insulted his dignity, disrespected my home, and tried to rob us. You pretended to care, but you came to steal. I didn't want to leave empty-handed, Tasha stammered. Because you never came for love, Elijah said coldly. You came for profit. Fine, Tasha screamed. I did it. I played your stupid game. I acted like I loved you, tolerated your broken body, sat through your silent dinners. I earned that prize. You didn't earn anything, Elijah replied. You were being tested. Tested, she repeated, confused. He took a deep breath. I was never broke, Elijah said. That story I told about losing the house, the cars, the money, and it was fake. I wanted to see who would still stay when the wealth was gone. Tasha blinked. Wait. What? Mrs. Carter added. The house was never in foreclosure. The gold wasn't even in the real safe. Elijah still owns everything. No, this can't be happening. Tasha dropped back to her knees, grabbing the hem of Mrs. Carter's robe. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was just desperate. You're not sorry, Mrs. Carter said. You're ashamed because you got caught. She stepped back. And you're not welcome in my home. Tasha screamed, grabbing her head. You'll regret this. I could have made this family powerful. I would have played my part. Elijah looked at her, quiet, calm. You played yourself, Tasha. The guard stepped in and pulled her to her feet. They removed the stolen gold and returned it to Mrs. Carter. Then, with her suitcase, and now filled with only her clothes and broken dreams, she was escorted out the front gates. As the gates shut behind her, Tasha let out one final cry of anger. She had arrived trying to marry a billionaire. She left as a cautionary tale. Back inside, Elijah turned to his mother. It's finally over, he said. Mrs. Carter nodded, holding her son's hand. It's just beginning, baby. But this time we're starting with the right people by our side. The Carter estate was still quiet after Tasha's dramatic exit. Her screams had long faded, and with her gone, the energy of the house shifted like a heavy burden had finally been lifted. In the garden, Ayana sat under the jacaranda tree, the same tree where Elijah had once rolled past her in silence. Now she sat still, her hands folded tightly in her lap, unaware of what had just taken place inside. She didn't know Tasha had been exposed. She didn't know Elijah had defended her. She didn't even know he had been walking all along. But she had hope. That hope flickered brighter when she looked up and saw him approaching, walking cane in hand, eyes locked on hers, her breath caught. Elijah? She whispered, standing up. He stopped just a few feet away, his voice soft but steady. I walked away from you once, he said. And it's the one thing I regret. Ayana's eyes filled with tears. You don't have to say anything. I do, he interrupted. Because you said the truth. Even when you were tricked. You stayed real when everyone else wore masks. You stood tall even when the house turned against you. She wiped her cheeks. But I still said those words. You were vulnerable. You were pushed. And even in that moment, you still said, you liked me. That's more honest than the fake love the others gave me. Ayana looked at him, her chest rising with every trembling breath. Elijah took a deep breath, then pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. I don't need a test anymore. I don't need to fake being broke or pretend to be broken. Because you already saw the real me, and you stayed. He knelt on one knee beneath the blooming jacaranda. Ayana, you came here to help your brother. You stayed when things got ugly. You saw past the wheelchair, past the money, past the pain. You saw me. He opened the box. Inside was a simple but elegant gold ring, engraved with the word, real. Will you marry me? Ayana covered her mouth, overcome with emotion. She nodded through tears. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Elijah stood, slipping the ring onto her finger, and pulled her into a tight embrace. The wind rustled the petals above them. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right. Inside the house, Mrs. Carter watched from the balcony, hands clasped to her chest, tears falling freely. It was the beginning of something new. 3 months later, the Carter estate had been transformed into a paradise. The day of Elijah and Ayana's wedding had arrived, and the whole place buzzed with joy, rhythm, and color. The ceremony was a fusion of elegance and rich cultural tradition. Bright kente, ankara, gale, and deep earth tones filled the garden, and the scent of jollof rice, grilled plantains, and sweet hibiscus punch danced through the air. Ayana stood before a large antique mirror, surrounded by Aunt Denise, Mrs. Carter, and 2 of her childhood friends flown in as a surprise. Her white dress shimmered like sunlight on water. Her braids were twisted into a regal updo adorned with golden pins. Mrs. Carter held Ayana's hands. "You are everything I prayed my son would find," she said tearfully. "Thank you for loving him, not for what he has, but for who he is." Ayana smiled softly. "He healed parts of me I didn't know were broken." Meanwhile, Elijah waited beneath the altar, dressed in a rich navy agbada with intricate gold embroidery. Standing tall, cane forgotten, he looked stronger than ever, a man reborn. When Ayana stepped down the aisle, time seemed to freeze. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her beauty was breathtaking, but it was the confidence and grace in her walk that left people speechless. As she reached him, Elijah's eyes sparkled with tears. "You look like my future," he whispered. The officiant, dressed in a white robe with gold trim, smiled warmly as he began. "Elijah Carter, do you take Ayana, your peace, your truth, and as your wife?" "I do," Elijah said, voice steady, clear. "Ayana, do you take Elijah, your strength, your protector, as your husband?" "With all my heart," she said. "You may now kiss your bride." The kiss was soft, slow, and filled with everything. They'd both endured rejection, shame, betrayal, and love that conquered it all. The guests erupted in cheers. Mrs. Carter cried with joy. Aunt Denise clapped so hard she dropped her purse. It was perfect. Meanwhile, across town, Tasha stood, outside a rusted apartment gate, knocking furiously. "Babe, open the door!" she shouted. Her ex-boyfriend finally opened, looking her up and down. No gold, no designer bag, no mansion behind her. His face curled into a smirk. No money, no love. He shut the door in her face. Tasha stood in the street, holding a worn-out suitcase, tears running down her cheeks. She had gambled with lies and lost everything. She had no love, no money, no legacy, only regrets. Back at the estate. Later that evening, the newlyweds danced beneath the stars, surrounded by family, friends, and laughter. The sound of drums echoed into the night while lanterns floated into the sky. Mrs. Carter pulled Ayana aside one last time before the evening ended. "Thank you," she said, eyes filled with pride. "You didn't just change my son's life. You changed all of ours." Ayana smiled, holding Elijah's hand. "He did the same for me." They both looked at their family, their friends, their future. There were no more masks, no more schemes, only truth, healing, and love. 9 months later, the Carter estate buzzed with quiet anticipation. Ayana was in the delivery suite of a private hospital, Elijah by her side, holding her hand tightly. Mrs. Carter paced in the hallway just outside, mumbling prayers under her breath, clutching a small gold necklace, the same one passed down from her grandmother. Inside, the air was thick with emotion. Ayana's eyes squeezed shut, her body tense with labor, sweat on her brow. Elijah gently kissed her forehead. "You've got this, baby," he whispered. "You're the strongest woman I know." She nodded weakly, then let out another cry as the contraction surged again, and then A sound. A piercing, beautiful cry. The doctor smiled. It's a girl. Ayana collapsed back on the pillow, tears of exhaustion and joy mixing on her cheeks. Elijah looked stunned, frozen, until the nurse gently handed him the baby. Small, wrinkled, perfect. He held her like she was made of glass. She's everything. Ayana reached out, her hands trembling. Elijah placed the baby gently in her arms. They looked at her together, overwhelmed. We'll call her Joy, Ayana whispered. Because that's exactly what she is, Elijah replied. Back at the estate, the celebration resumed the moment the news arrived. Mrs. Carter danced, barefoot in the living room, hugging Aunt Denise, the gardener, and even the usually stoic head of security. My granddaughter is here. She beamed. And her name is Joy. Weeks later, the family gathered in the garden, under the jacaranda tree where Elijah once proposed. A naming ceremony was held, with traditional drummers, food, blessings, and prayers. Little baby Joy wore a tiny white dress, a golden bracelet on her ankle, and a smile that melted hearts. As Ayana rocked her in her arms, she whispered softly, "Your name is Joy, not just because you bring us happiness, but because you were born from struggle, truth, and love that refused to give up." Elijah sat beside them, arm around Ayana, looking out at the crowd of people who once doubted, once hurt, once healed. Mrs. Carter stood up and raised her cup high. "To legacy," she said, "not of wealth, but of truth, love, and loyalty." Everyone raised their glasses and cheered, and so, from heartbreak came healing. From lies came loyalty. From loss came joy. The Carter family, once broken by tragedy, now stood united, stronger than ever. They didn't just find love, they built it together.